today we're talking all about I.S.O. or I.S.O. It's I.S.O. It's I.S.O. if I'm talking to Sony users. Oh God, the comments, I can see them already. I got a whole video on this. I don't care what you call it, I'm calling it I.S.O. If you're new to the photography game, let me quickly break down I.S.O. for you. I.S.O. is your sensors or film sensitivity to light. When you control your I.S.O. setting, the higher the number, the more light is coming in. No, not light is coming into your camera, but the more light your sensor or your film is sensitive to. So it's gonna make the photo brighter, trying to make it as easy as possible to understand. The higher the I.S.O. number, the brighter it's going to make your photo. The lower it is, the less sensitive to light your sensor or your film is, so it's going to be darker. Now you can't just go brightening up your picture using I.S.O. without any consequences. As you raise the I.S.O., grain or noise is introduced into your image, and this causes your image to potentially, depending how far you go, appear less saturated, kind of a little bit blurry, and to have what we call grain or noise in the image, kind of like little dots, almost like bad TV reception. So I want you to take a look at these photos that we took comparing I.S.O. front to back for you, as high as my Canon R5 would go. Just take a look. So as you can see, the higher we go on I.S.O., the more desaturated, kind of blurry, not as crisp and clean looking the image gets. For this reason, even if you have the latest technology and a camera that really handles a great I.S.O., your goal is to get your I.S.O. to be as low as possible. Now, I do have a thought on that. I don't think I.S.O. is the first thing that you should set on your camera, but it's something that you have to keep in mind because it is going to potentially greatly affect the quality of your image. Now, can you take some of this noise away in post-production? Absolutely. Capture One, Lightroom, things like Topaz. There are a lot of different editing softwares that do a great job at removing the negative consequences of going higher on your I.S.O. But that's not going to solve all of your problems. And of course, you want to have the cleanest possible image coming straight out of camera for the highest possible quality in your final image. Now, like I said, this was shot with a Canon R5. This is the latest technology. It does a beautiful job handling I.S.O. For me personally, I don't mind pushing this camera to 4,000 or 5,000 I.S.O. It will produce a pretty clean image, and at the very most, I've got a little bit of work to do in post-production to clean it up a little bit. But if I'm photographing with something that's not the latest technology or has the best sensor in it, or just the most expensive camera in the world, let's just say the opposite of that, you know, it's not going to handle I.S.O. as well. That's one of the reasons we spend more money for expensive cameras, so we can shoot in low light conditions without as many or as harsh of those negative consequences that we talked about. Before we get any further in this video, let me tell you about this video's sponsor, Squarespace. I have been using Squarespace for probably over a decade. Squarespace is a platform where you can create beautiful custom websites in just a few minutes. Choose from a plethora of templates where you can easily plug and play your own work. It's an all-in-one platform for building your brand and growing your business online. We all know that an online presence is crucial for your brand, so build one that stands out. Head over to this link for my exclusive 10% discount on your first domain at Squarespace. Now back to the video. So if you're shooting with an older camera, let's say you've got a Rebel T7, it's a great camera, I love it, I've got videos on this channel, but you push that thing past 1600 and man, you're gonna be crying afterwards. At least a little bit more than when you push past 1600 on an R5. So you do have to take that into consideration. Go ahead and do a test just like this. Now my settings of course changed throughout all of these pictures because we were in the same lighting scenario, so things like my f-stop and my shutter speed all changed while I was raising and lowering the I.S.O. Those things all are kind of married to each other in that beautiful little exposure triangle. I really hate the exposure triangle. Go watch this other video I have on how I set on my manual settings and how I think about I.S.O. and how it comes to play in my image. I think you will find it very useful. Like, I hope you found this video useful, all about comparing different I.S.O. levels, I.S.O. increments, I.S.O. settings, whatever you want to call it. Hit like, subscribe, ring the bell, hit me up with some comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye.